Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. As always, want to thank everybody for your support over on Patreon, where we usually twice and occasionally even 3 times during a week will put up Patreon exclusive deep dives into some topics that we only feel comfortable sharing on Patreon. And again, we want to get back to those that are making this possible. Indeed, we do. Thank you. So, in case you missed it, there's a new series on Netflix, and it stars an unlikely, very comedic Jeff Goldblum as Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods. And, you know, it's comical, and at the same time, there's always a purpose behind anything that comes out there. And I do feel that what they're doing here with this series is, again, what they've done with so many in the past movies and series. They're getting us ready for a little tidbit of information drop. And Jeff Goldblum as Zeus is a curious casting call, to say the least. You know, it's very humorous, this series. We did catch the first episode or 2, and you know, it's like, do we want to, you know, watch this? Really, but at the same time, it's like, well, you know, they're doing this with a purpose, and I think it's important to try to see what the system is doing. I think what they're doing is they're getting us very comfortable with some of the myths and legends from our past. Many people might not be as familiar with Greek mythology as the Bible itself, or maybe even the Quran, depending on where we're coming from. So they're reintroducing a cast of characters from our past that may be reintroduced to us in person again in our near future. And it's interesting because they do say at this point in this movie early on, you know, Zeus wasn't always a god. He was one of you. He was one of you. Well, who are we? Ah, yes. And again, everything in this world is obviously taught from the controller's perspective, which is the winner's perspective of the war, at least to this point in time. So portraying the Olympian gods as very, very dysfunctional, materialistic, self-centered, ego, arrogant. Yeah, they are all that. They really, truly are all that. This show is called Chaos here. They're also very, very humanish, and in some ways they kind of represent the worst of us. In many ways they do represent the worst of us. I saw this post, and I just want to share this, and then I'll give it off to Cindy, by Jay Anderson, and he said, "You better hope Tom DeLonge and his Pentagon spooks are wrong when they say the Greek gods were real, or are real." I don't know how much you know about Greek mythology, but they were not nice gods. Yes, this is what I mean. They are going to introduce them to us.
You know, one of the things I wanted to point out, the difference between us and these Greek gods is their emotion. How they utilize their emotion is very, very, very different from us because their perspective is different. So this is allowing them to do things that are really quite cold to us because we are very emotional beings. I mean, things that come into our life, we have to process. We have to get these things in alignment with our soul. So it's not so easy being human and being here where we're at. You have to really master those emotions, which are very lacking with the gods because they're really not even looking at things with the idea that there's death. So whenever you are dealing with a being higher in frequency, whether they are warm and loving, whether they are cold and mean, you always got to keep in mind that change in perception is very, very important. They're probably not taking into account that you could die. And we are. So that's a big line that I like to point out.
Well, you know, it is interesting because, you know, when we're out of the body, most of the time you'll find that you're still very much you, and there's this period of transition, and other series have done this too, like the Loki series that I think Disney puts out. When you're in the afterlife, they show you up at some bureau where you got to stand in line for hours just to process paperwork. Well, I don't think it's that bad, but that would be my definition of hell in so many ways. I've said before, my definition of hell is being stuck on an eternal phone call trying to get to a human to speak to, and all you have is the automated voice at the other end. Oh man, yeah, absolutely. That's the corporate bureaucracy, which we get from these beings. Everything that we get comes from these beings. When you really are talking about these Greek gods, we are talking about the same entities that we would call the Sumerian gods and Anunnaki, those that come down from the heavens. Now, at different times, in different eras, in different yugas, the beings that we were used to seeing were much more benevolent. When we come to the Kali Yuga, yeah, we're only surrounded by the dark ones, and then they leave their little monkeys in charge of governing the planet in their style. Look again to the Roman way of doing things with the Roman Empire, which again, many people will tell you, historians will say, well, Rome was really kind of like an extension of the Greek Empire and the Greek way of doing things. And, the Greek Empire and the Greek way of doing things really emanated from the Fertile Crescent area, and, the Sumerians is really where that started. And the Sumerians, in reality, that system with those hybrid beings, because when you look to the king's lists, and again, I'll find people that post really good things, and then they'll go back to literally thinking that the Earth is 4,000 6,000 years old, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Earth is not as old as we are led to believe from its recreation from Tiamat, which was billions of years old. But then again, this is part of that distortion. Flat earthers will say the math doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because the Earth is so much bigger. But if you are thinking that we have an impenetrable dome that nobody could come and go from, well, that's the biggest misuse of knowledge that there is, because the controllers are not from here, and ultimately neither are we. In that sense, again, humanity has been reseeded here from hundreds, if not thousands, of different places across the galaxy. So yes, they will point to stars don't look like what they tell us. Well, stars are beings. These are consciousnesses. Everything is consciousness, though. There's consciousness in a watermelon. This is the thing to understand. Everything that we see is consciousness exploring creation. Creation is created for consciousness. Consciousness does not come about because of creation. This is exactly, again, how the system is completely upside down and backwards. And I understand that, unfortunately, there's a lot of humans that have lower IQs than gorillas and chimpanzees at this point in time. It's because, again, of the fluoridated water. It's because of the toxic foods. It's because of the energies penetrating through their brain all the time, the different signals. It's purposeful, and we can see IQs have been dropping consistently. Life expectancy has been dropping consistently. Fertility rates dropping consistently. When you look to the past, what do we see? We see overlaps of different types of humanoid beings on the planet. There's overlaps. There's times when one particular species seems to be the most abundant, and then it may be gone. You see that there's several different. And all these end up dying off unexpectedly, or they'll say, well, Homo sapiens wiped out Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens wiped out Denisovans, and wiped out, on down the line, all these other species. And in some ways, we might have contributed to it because, again, the real power structure manipulates us all the time into working for them. But the real power structure doesn't come from here. It comes from elsewhere, and even frequency, wise as well. So as Jay says, they were not nice gods. No, they toyed with humans, completely toyed with humans. Humans were like a plaything, and they demanded worship. And they would, again, send plague, fire, famine, flood. When you read the Greek myths, and then you read the Old Testament, all you got to do is change the word God or Lord and make it plural, which the first use of the Hebrew is in the plural. And in fact, if you go to some of the earliest Genesis books that we have, it's all talking more like the Greek mythology or the Sumerian mythology, because it clearly states the gods. It doesn't state a god. It doesn't state one particular name. It's the gods. It's Elohim. And yes, somebody has said when you say Elohim, it makes me cringe because I think of Elohim as benevolent beings. One of the things that's done is these usurpers, because they are usurpers, they take titles, they take words and names, and there's great evidence of this. Anybody that is really a mythology, history, archaeology buff, and has been exposed to this, that you'll see like Amun-Ra. And Ra was a separate entity. Amun was a separate entity. And by the way, Christians all day, every day are finishing their prayers, giving energy to Amun. Amun, Amen. This is where it comes from. And then they get combined into one. And you'll see this time and time again in the mythology. This is the takeover. And in fact, you will see also that many tribes were expecting the return of White Pahana, the white brother, here in the Americas. That was a benevolent being that taught them different things, how to cultivate foods, which herbs are medicinal in nature, etc., etc., how to read storms, all these different things. And, so they weren't automatically afraid of those that came and ultimately conquered and killed them. Talking about the conquistadors and all the European explorers that came, they opened their homes. They welcomed them with open arms. They were used to greeting beings that looked different than them, and they could trust them overall, and they did. And they were exterminated because they trusted the wrong ones. They thought that they were what they were used to seeing in ages past, more benevolent beings. But no, when these beings came, these beings were self-centered. So again, when we go and we talk about our Hindu mythology, and we talk about devas and asuras, devas are generally portrayed as benevolent celestial beings who uphold righteousness and protect the cosmos from evil forces. The asuras are exactly the opposite. They're driven by ego and ambition. They're often associated with chaos, greed, arrogance, and they just take what they want. The famous Ramayana story is born out of that, in that this particular asura, Ravana, sees Sita, thinks she's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. He doesn't care that she loves somebody else. He steals her. He just abducts her. He takes her. He wants to make her his wife. And so, this Bigfoot-like being, Hanuman, helps Rama, and it's all about their conquest to get Sita back so she can be with the one that she loves. And, you know, this is exactly how these beings operate. And the Greek mythology are perfect examples of, you know, the difference between them. So humans were used to the Devic beings. These are the beings that teach without any sort of demands of being worshipped or expecting anything back. They do it out of the goodness of their heart. When we see the Asir and the Vanir from the Norse mythology, we're seeing the same sort of thing. Two very distinct groups of gods and goddesses. And again, what does that mean? That just means beings with more technology, beings that understand how the universe works, and came here from other places. The Asir, which we can equate to the Anunnaki and the Greek gods, and the Roman gods, Sumerian gods, they were more warlike, they're martial, and again, that Mars energy associated with battle, violence, and war. They reside in Asgard, the realm of the gods, many deities, Odin, Thor, Heimdall, Loki, Baldur, and there's this hierarchy, strong, bold, and fierce. The Vanir, associated with fertility, prosperity, commerce, and magic, reside in Vanaheim, a realm separate from Asgard. Deities like Freya, Freyr, Njord, and others emphasize wisdom, subtlety, and the power of magic, often depicted as gentle, wise, and mysterious. Now, these are the Devic sorts of beings and entities. These are who we were used to in other ages. And so when the Anunnaki, to use that term, the Bible, is using the term Elohim again to depict when these more warlike, aggressive, expansionist, absolutely the energy of Mars in that warlike sense came. Humanity opened up their arms, their homes, their hearts to them, and then found out these are not the same beings. These are not nice beings like the other ones that we were used to seeing. And in fact, these beings did, take, as the Bible says, take wives from the most beautiful humans and other species that were upon the planet. And, in the case of Zeus, he had over 100 children. And they viewed humans as playthings. Hera would turn humans into all sorts of different creatures just on a whim. They're egotistical, they're arrogant. They are the worst of our human emotions. And they are exactly the real controllers behind the scenes. Again, having their offspring, which, again, many of the Gigi are their offspring. So we're told about the 12 Olympians, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Demeter, Hermes, Hestia. And then you had the pre-Olympian gods, the Titans. Now the Titans, again, are talking about those beings that are more in tune with nature. Now they're given a depiction, again, of not being desirable by the Olympian gods, and the Olympian gods, conquered the Titans, the titanic energies, and of course, Titan, big, and we can equate that to giants. Now, not all giants were good. In fact, many of the giants are offsprings of what we would call the Olympian gods or the Anunnaki, or they're even just not even really offspring, but just hybrid creations in labs that get loose and run wild and run amok. When the Bible talks about giants devouring humans, in many respects, the ones that devoured the most humans were those that we would call the dinosaurs, which were, to them, cattle and also pets in so many ways. And they would actually, if you go and look at the Roman pastime of watching gladiators fight to the death and fighting animals and things like that, Well, these Olympian gods, love nothing better than a good hunt, letting loose dinosaurs and raptors and T-Rexes to go hunt down humans and devour humans. They found that to be sport. This is the type of beings that we are talking about here. And their bloodlines still rule from the shadows, and some are not so shadowy, and there are some names that we do know of very, very well. And this is really what they have planned, is a reintroduction of these Olympian gods to humanity. And I bet you anything they will represent them as the Galactic Federation, of which they could not even be close to, because the frequency range is so different. Again, the Galactic Federation is 5th density and above. So if we were actually to see them, we would see them as nothing but a pure light being.
Yeah, there's a lot of bleeding into the human race from these types of gods, and you can look at people who have these tendencies. I mean, some really might love to hunt, and they have their hunting dogs, they have their horses, they go out, they do their thing. So you can see how it bleeds into the human race, because they were making all kinds of babies. So there's a lot of humans that have these bloodlines, and they have these natural tendencies that they might not always like, and they don't understand where they come from. And we all have that ability to tap into a different part of ourselves. And there's so many different parts of ourselves to humans. Humans have no idea how amazing they really, really are. I mean, the different types of being that you can tap into, there's a multitude of them. You don't have to stick with just, one higher self. You can focus in on another part of your life and focus in on that strain of that lifetime of that higher self. It depends on how far you want to go and how willing you are to be able to sit down and get connections to all of your past lives. It depends on the conversation that you had with your spirit team coming into this world. How much did you want to know? And yes, there are situations in life, if life gets really hard and you say the right word, if you say the right word, like uncle, the spirit team will help you. They will definitely step in and help you. But this is the thing. Humans don't know where they're from. They've been given this amnesia on purpose because they have such powerful abilities, and they can go a span of so many different dimensions, whereas these beings, they're kind of stuck where they're at. But then again, it's almost like they like where they're at. It's a curious one.
Oh, it's very curious. This particular channel, Johannes Midger, he says, I used to get a lot of views. Wonder why my account got so quiet. Probably just a coincidence, as he was pointing out this Roman mosaic floor under a vineyard in Italy. Evidence of the reset is everywhere. Yeah, the reset is constant and continual. If you really want to understand our controllers, then definitely get into that Greek mythology. I mean, I always found mythology fun as can be. I thought it was, just curious beyond belief, and in so many ways very clear, much more clear than the stuff that's hidden in some other books, and sold as being good, but it's not really good. Here we could see these beings, it's trivial to them if people get wiped out. It just is a means to an end. They view humanity very much like, a human settlement is just like an anthill to them. And, hell, that's in the way. Let's just wash that away. And there you have it. This is exactly how this system truly operates. But again, take heart, because as we were saying, the ones that we are in contact with the vast majority of the time, because the Kali Yuga is very, very short and brief compared to the other yugas. It's, thank God, the smallest, as far as the shortest time frame. But again, When you're sitting in the dentist chair and he's drilling away, time has a way of seeming longer. And at the same time, if you're doing something that you enjoy so much, time can seem very, very short. Like, oh, it's over. Oh, again, time is relative, and it is very relative to the Yugas. The other thing that's very relative to the Yugas is, again, who we encounter. So we are heading into a Bronze Age, which, that was the age immediately preceding the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is dark for a reason. There's a lack of knowledge. Humans are totally in the dark. They don't have a clue. They've been given the Bible and the Quran to light their way, and the reality is that's complete distortion, and it's not the reality of what we have going on here. In fact, again, it couldn't be any farther from the truth. Like Cindy was saying, we ourselves are amazing creators, and they don't want us to know our creative power and potential. It is written in the Greek mythology that humans are just like the gods in the Golden Age. Well, yeah, and much higher. And, I was trying to explain the difference in frequency, which when we connect to beings like the Galactic Federation, there's a certain level of love that comes through. When we connect to the beings that we call the Devas, the love that comes through is so palpable. It's beyond the love you've ever felt in this plane of existence, because this plane of existence can't reach that high all the time. There's too much darkness that's been in this realm to allow us to touch that level of love, that level of compassion and understanding, which when we connect to the Devas, you could feel that. It goes beyond words. It truly is that agape love, to use that term, that is beyond understanding. It is overwhelming and lets you know everything is okay. This is only a temporary experience right here, right now. So we're going into a period where there's going to be a lot more open, just straight out in the open, knowledge and seeing with your own eyes beings that have a lot more technology than us. And you'll see in a Bronze Age, you'll see everything. Good, bad, and every level of in between. In some ways, the Bronze Age is perhaps truly the most exciting age. Now, I do think also that we have the potential after this life to go straight up into a 5D existence. It depends on the individual. It depends on where your frequency is. So, if your frequency is very, very low, again, it's going to be a much longer climb up that ladder of frequency. And so it's so important to prioritize a mind meditative breath practice like Qigong, yoga, and meditation. When you get down to it, when we're not embodied, our whole existence is sort of a meditation. Especially on the higher frequencies. So cultivating this is important. This is saying that silence causes the brain to massively expand. Your brain is not the home of your intelligence, but it can limit you. It can limit what you have going on in this world and your ability to function, especially your ability to tap into the higher abilities that you have naturally. Your brain can be the thing that's holding you back. Our brains have been saturated with all sorts of heavy metals, aluminum, barium, lead, all sorts of toxins, horrible water, horrible air, and frequencies. If you are in the big cities and you're bombarded by the frequencies, again, no wonder you can't conceive of something because you haven't experienced it directly. Because you're not going to be able to get clear enough to be able to live to your highest potential. So think about this. Is silence golden? Oh, it sure is. It's amazing. When I step outside at night, and we're blessed to be pretty far out, in the country. But as I've shared, our property here is 1/5 of the typical median house. 1/5, 20% is what this place costs compared to the median house across the country. So in fact, you could say we're living very much like the poorer people would live in the United States. And yet I think it's a blessing to be in a location like we are, because it is afforded real quiet. And sometimes it's just so overwhelmingly silent. When we were out in New Mexico and we do our thing out hiking, it was just amazing, because again, we're in areas where, you could go miles in either direction and you might not come across a single human, and the silence is amazing. But yet the meditation and the experience of the other realms, feeling into other dimensions that are right at the same space where you are, they're just a different frequency away. This is always the case, but if you're in the middle of New York City, LA, Chicago, Miami, Paris, London, Rome, you're never going to be able to really sense it, because of all the buzz that's happening at the same time. You need that silence, and this could actually trigger our brain to all new levels. So, again, it's a choice. It is a choice for the individual and what you are going to prioritize. Are you going to prioritize the more Greek God-oriented goals in life, or are you going to, prioritize those of a more natural system, the original matrix or the dark matrix?
It's up to you. Everybody has their own mission. They all have an idea of where they want to explore, and we're looking at exploration of source energy. So that means emotions can go up high and they can go down low, and they can be whatever it is you want to do, whatever lesson it is you need to learn. That's the important thing. So I like to separate the judgment of high and low, and have people realize it's the experience. And what do you need? Where do you need expansion? What do you want to have? I mean, Source created all of these fractals so it could experience, to give you that experience. So whatever you need to do, that's the important thing.
Absolutely. And just want to stress again, the mythologies of Greece, Rome, or even the Sumerian myths, they're not exact. There's no myth that we have that's exact, but it could give you some clues to the bigger picture. And it is interesting, again, the Titans were called the former gods, the generation of gods preceding the Olympians. Yes, they were, you can look at it, the gods of a different Yuga. They were overthrown as part of the Greek succession myth. Again, Kronos looked at as time itself, and Zeus and the Olympians conquering time. Well, they are part of the AI collective, the Draconian collective, and they're part of the false matrix. And so again, these stories come from their perspective. Even though the farther back in time we go, the less cover-up is involved in the nature of these beings. So when you look to the Sumerian kings lists, and you'll find, like Wikipedia will say, well, there's got to be some error in the computation of these time frames, because again, a sar or a shar can't equate to time the way we know it in our calendar year at this point in time, because these beings reigned for thousands of years. Again, it is relative to the Yugas, and time itself is relative, which is something that's I think very hard for our brains to get around. Yeah, absolutely. Again, this we see these mythologies when we see the Asuras, and if you look to Iran in Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda is their supreme deity, and the root of the word Ahura is the same as Asura. So you see their main deity is in fact an asura. And this shows you again how the demons got to be put in the place of the real benevolent beings. And that's the same case with the Bible. And you see it also in the Asir and the Vanir. And again, the Asir equating more to the Anunnaki. And when you look to all the stories of all the different myths and the hybrids and, the heroes, and the Bible just basically says these were the mighty men of old, men of renown, as in something good, or at least having something that was good to them. The power is the thing that the system is all about. The power is the thing that the warlike Anunnaki are all about. The power, the ego, the greed. So when we go back to this, and we see Jay Anderson saying about Tom DeLonge and his Pentagon spooks, that these Greek gods were or are real, this is because they do intend on introducing them to you. This will be coming, and the fact that their offspring have been here the whole time, and this is how they're going to try to say, well, take it easy on those rocky fellers, and take it easy on those red shields. Maybe they got some things wrong, but hey, they're from Zeus and from the other Olympians. Yeah,
they're nice guys. They mean well. I don't know. It's crazy. They're gonna, like Mike said, they are gonna try to pawn them off as good beings. Oh, they're gods, and try to make people look up to them. And in reality, we are all human, or sort of human. We all have all kinds of different bloodlines in us. And we all have a right to be here. We shouldn't have to pay to live on our planet. That's just super silly. I mean, we need to get back to a place where things are more symbiotic.
Absolutely. So, I hope you guys got something out of this. And again, for those that don't get cynicism or satirical points of view, again, we don't think these guys are benevolent, not at all. These are the real controllers behind the scenes. They've never really left. They've just kind of taken a step back and control from a distance. But as you see also, they're all about, and their lower echelon, their lower management, it's all about promoting people that are all about greed. As we see, who else could do the things that they've done on this planet, from the Jacinda Ardерns and the Trudeaus and the Macrons, etc., etc. The one thing I would take also from this, because when you look to this and the other legends, they say, well, they were just like you. You can be like a Zeus. Yeah, what are they going to sell you on? They're going to sell you on the AI. They're going to sell you on that's Elon's job, is going to be selling you on, again, the chipping and et cetera, the nanotech. That's going to be the road to godhood that they're going to, offer, as they will also offer technology to clean up the planet, because they've purposely trashed it so that they could come back and show you amazing technology that's going to make it pristine again.
Indeed, they truly are. So we all need to sit square in our seat and know where we're at in our soul.
Yes, and I know there will be a random person that doesn't have a clue that's going to say, there's no God but one God, the God of the Old Testament, and doesn't understand that you go and you look and you'll see that it's in the plural. So again, that's just pure ignorance and not understanding the original sources. We've talked about exactly what's happened in those giant cities of Bashan, and it's happened over here in North America too. Again, they wipe out all traces of the extraterrestrial actions that have happened in the past. And in fact, You know, again, there's nothing that's on this planet that wasn't put here purposely by intelligent beings to repopulate a planet that was laid waste.
Indeed.
As always, look forward to your comments. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.